Kelari walked slowly through the silent streets of her once great city. The sky was dull and gray, dust hanging thick in the air. Buildings that had touched the clouds were now broken shells. Smoke rose in small, dark clouds from distant fires that never seemed to stop. The only sounds were the echoes of her footsteps and the faint howl of the cold wind. She looked down at her hands. Her blue skin, soft and smooth, was covered in scratches and dirt. Her long silver hair hung in tangled strands over her shoulders. Her eyes, usually bright and full of hope, were tired and filled with pain. She was alone. The war had taken everything. Her planet, Illyria, was once known for peace and knowledge. The Illyrians lived in harmony with nature and technology. They shared their wisdom with many other worlds. But then the war came. A cruel enemy, strong and merciless, attacked their home without warning. The Illyrian fleet was small but brave. They fought hard, but the enemy's numbers were too great. Fighting destroyed cities, homes, and hopes. Millions of Illyrians died or fled. Kelari lost her family, her friends, and her purpose. She had been a scientist, working to find new energy sources that could help many worlds. Now her work was ashes, and her people scattered. She did not know where to go. At first, Kelari tried to find other Illyrians. She traveled to the nearby starports, hoping to catch a ship heading to friendly systems. But most ships were full or afraid to carry refugees. Some space stations denied her entry, seeing her as a danger. They whispered rumors about the Illyrians, blaming them for the war or fearing that the enemy might come after them. Kelari felt the weight of loneliness grow heavier with each day. She had to hide in empty buildings to avoid patrols. Food was scarce. Water was harder to find. Every night she thought of her lost home and wondered if she would ever find a place to belong again. One evening, as the sun set behind the broken towers, Kelari sat near a damaged communications tower. She watched the few stars that pierced the dusty sky. Her heart ached with memories and questions. Why did the war come? Could peace ever return? Was she the last of her kind in this place? A small sound broke her thoughts, a soft whistle from the distance. She turned her head slowly, eyes searching the shadows. A figure stepped forward. He was a human man, tall, and wearing simple clothes stained with dirt. He carried a small bag and looked tired but calm. Kelari's body tensed. Humans were known to be curious and sometimes dangerous to strangers. She prepared to run, but the man did not move closer. Fast. Instead, he raised his hands in peace. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said in a gentle voice. Kelari studied him carefully. His eyes were kind, and his smile was small, but honest. "Are you alone?" he asked softly. She did not answer. Instead, she looked away, unsure if she could trust anyone after all she had lost. The man sat down a little distance away and pulled out a small package of food. "You must be hungry," he said. "I brought this for you." Kelari's throat tightened. She had not eaten properly in days, but pride stopped her from reaching out. "Why do you help me?" she finally asked. The man shrugged. "Because I believe no one should suffer alone, and because maybe one day you would help me too." Kelari looked at him again. For the first time in many days, she felt a small warmth in her chest. She took a cautious step closer, then another. The man handed her the food. She ate slowly, tasting warmth and hope. They sat together as the night grew colder. The man introduced himself as Darren. He was once a pilot who flew supplies to distant colonies. Now, he worked on the edges of human space, fixing machines and helping where he could. Kelari listened quietly. She told Darren little about herself, afraid to share her pain. But his calm presence was different. It made her feel less alone. As stars twinkled high above, Kelari thought about what this meeting could mean. Maybe, just maybe, there was still kindness left in the universe. The war had taken her home, her family, and her future. But it had not taken her spirit. And as she sat beside this human stranger under the broken sky, She felt the faintest spark of something new, a chance to begin again. Darren woke early the next morning. The pale light of the distant sun filtered through the dusty windows of his small outpost. It was quiet except for the soft hum of machines he had repaired and the occasional wind outside. Kailari was still asleep, resting on the thin cot he had offered her the night before. He watched her for a moment. She looked peaceful, something he had not seen in many months. Her silver hair lay gently across the pillow and her breathing was calm. Darren smiled quietly to himself. He had met many people in his life, but Kailari was different. There was a strength inside her hidden beneath the pain. Darren knew the rules. Strangers, especially alien refugees, were often seen as threats. Many humans feared what they did not understand. His employers had told him to report anyone unusual, but Darren had never been one to follow orders blindly. To him, kindness was more important. He stepped outside to check his equipment. The small, solar panels glistened under the weak sunlight. His outpost was not much, a collection of metal and old parts, but it was his home, and he had built it himself. Here, on the edge of human space, far from busy cities and strict laws, Darren could live simply. When he returned inside, Kailari was awake. She sat quietly staring at the wall, her eyes still heavy with tiredness. "Good morning," Darren said softly. Kailari nodded, but did not speak. Darren sat down beside her. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." Kailari looked at him, her blue eyes searching. For a moment she seemed to want to say something, but stopped. "I know you have lost much," Darren continued gently. "I have lost people too. Maybe we can help each other." Kailari's lips pressed together. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Where will I go now?" Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Darren thought for a moment. "There are places you might be safe," he said. "Human space is big. Not everyone is afraid. Some want peace." Kailari sighed. "I tried to find my people, but the war has scattered them. And humans do not welcome us easily." Darren's eyes grew serious. "That is true. Fear and hate often blind us, but it does not have to be that way." Kailari looked down at her hands. "I have no home now, no family. I do not know what to do." Darren reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. "I have a ship," he said. "Small, but fast. I can help you look for others like you." Kailari's eyes widened. "You would do that?" Darren smiled. "If you want, we can try together." For the first time, Kailari felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this human was different. Over the next few days, they prepared the small shuttle. Darren cleaned the engines and checked the navigation systems. Kailari helped as much as she could, learning quickly. She found comfort in the simple tasks. They shared stories too. Kailari spoke of Illuria's beauty, its green forests, crystal rivers, and starry skies. She described the peaceful life before the war, the festivals, and the music. Darren listened with wonder. In return, Darren told her about Earth and the human colonies. He spoke of the cities filled with light and noise, of people from many worlds living side by side. He told her about the struggles humans faced, wars, poverty, but also kindness and courage. One evening, as they sat watching the twin moons rise, Kailari asked, "Why do you help me, Darren? Why risk so much?" Darren looked at her with steady eyes. "Because I believe everyone deserves a second chance. And because sometimes when you reach out, you find a friend where you least expect it." Kailari smiled faintly. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, but not everyone would see their friendship the same way. On the fourth day, as they prepared to leave the outpost, a patrol ship appeared on the horizon. Its lights flashed red and blue. Darren's heart sank. The human patrol was known to be strict and suspicious of strangers. If they found Kailari, she could be taken away or worse. Darren stepped outside and raised his hands in peace. "We're leaving," he called to the patrol. The patrol ship's speaker crackled. "Identify yourselves. You are in restricted space." Darren gave his pilot code and explained they were leaving. The patrol scanned the area carefully. Kailari stayed inside, watching nervously. Her hands trembled. After what felt like hours, the patrol ship finally moved away, its lights fading into the distance. Darren returned inside, breathing heavily. "That was close," he said. Kailari looked at him, eyes wide. "I am sorry. I brought trouble." Darren shook his head. "No. You brought hope." That night, as they prepared to leave the next morning, Kailari felt a strange warmth in her heart. For the first time since the war, she was not running alone. Someone had reached out, and maybe, just maybe, she could find a new path. The small shuttle hummed softly as it soared above the rocky surface of the desert planet. Kailari sat by the window, watching the vast orange dunes stretch endlessly beneath them. She felt a strange mix of hope and fear swirling inside her. Darren sat at the controls, steady and focused. His hands moved smoothly over the buttons and switches, guiding the craft toward a remote region where signals had been faintly detected. They hoped to find other Illurian survivors, or at least some clue about their fate. The silence inside the shuttle was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Both were lost in their thoughts, each carrying the weight of their pasts. Kailari's mind wandered back to the last days on Illuria. She remembered the sky burning with fire as enemy ships attacked, the screams, the chaos, and the terrible choice, to flee rather than fight. She had left behind everything she loved. The guilt pressed on her like a heavy stone. She glanced at Darren. His calm presence was a comfort she had not expected. He didn't ask too many questions, nor did he offer false hope. Instead, he listened and shared small pieces of himself, allowing her to find peace in the quiet. Suddenly, the shuttle shook slightly. Darren's eyes narrowed. "A sandstorm ahead," he said quietly. "We might need to land soon." Kailari nodded. The desert storms here were fierce and unpredictable. Darren skillfully guided the shuttle down toward a rocky ridge where the wind was less strong. They landed safely and shut down the engines. Outside, the storm raged like a wild beast. The air was thick with dust and sand, swirling in violent waves. The sky turned dark, blotting out the sun. They could not fly again until the storm passed. Inside the shuttle's small cabin, the light flickered softly. Kailari wrapped a thin blanket around her shoulders. She felt cold, not just from the temperature but from the uncertainty that still clung to her. Darren moved to the small table and opened a container of food. "We'll have to wait it out," he said. "But we have enough supplies." Kailari forced a small smile. "Thank you." They ate in silence, the sound of the storm outside the only noise. As night fell, the shuttle's interior grew colder. Kailari shivered, pulling the blanket tighter. Darren noticed and moved closer, offering her a second blanket. "Here," he said softly. She accepted it, grateful for the kindness. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. After a while, Darren began to speak. "You know, I wasn't always a pilot or mechanic. I used to be a teacher on Earth." Kailari looked at him surprised. "A teacher?" He nodded. "I taught children about science and stars. I loved it. But the world changed, and so did I." Kailari listened, fascinated. She wanted to know more about this human who had reached out to her. Darren continued. "When the war started, I joined to help deliver supplies. I lost many friends, but I never lost hope that things could be better." Kailari's eyes softened. "I lost hope too," she said quietly. Darren looked at her with understanding. "Maybe we can find it again. Together." She wanted to believe him. Hours passed, as the storm raged on outside. They talked quietly about their dreams and fears. Words became bridges between two very different worlds. But not everything was easy. Kailari found it hard to talk about her deepest pain, the guilt she felt for leaving her people behind. She wondered if she could ever forgive herself. One moment, tears escaped her eyes. She quickly wiped them away, ashamed to show weakness. Darren reached out gently and touched her hand. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to carry it all alone." Kalari looked into his eyes and saw nothing but kindness. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel vulnerable. The storm outside began to calm. The wind slowed and the sky lightened. Darren checked the controls. "Looks like we can take off soon." Kalari nodded. She felt a new strength inside. Her, a small flame that no storm could extinguish. Before they left, Darren stood and looked out the window. "No matter what happens, we will keep searching. There are others out there. We just have to find them." Kalari smiled faintly. "Thank you, Darren, for not giving up." He returned the smile. "Never." As the shuttle rose into the sky, the stars twinkled brightly above. Kalari watched them with hope. She no longer felt the crushing weight of loneliness. With Darren by her side, she believed that maybe one day she would find home again. The shuttle glided smoothly through the cold, empty space between stars. Outside the window, the blackness of the void stretched endlessly, dotted with distant lights from faraway suns. Inside, Kalari and Darren prepared for their next move. After the sandstorm delay, both felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had a mission, not just to survive, but to find others like Kalari, lost but not forgotten, and perhaps to heal the wounds left by war and fear. Kalari studied the navigation panel carefully. The signals they chased were weak and scattered, remnants of old Illyrian communication attempts. She pointed at the star map. "This is where the last transmission came from. A research station, far from any major trade route." Darren nodded. "It's risky. The area is poorly charted, and we could run into trouble. But if we find survivors, it will be worth it." Kalari's heart beat faster. After so much loss, the idea of reunion filled her with both hope and fear. Would her people still remember her? Would they accept her? As the shuttle approached the distant system, Darren began running checks on the engines and life support. Kalari watched him work with quiet admiration. Though they came from different worlds, they made a strong team. "Tell me," Kalari said, breaking the silence. "How did you learn to trust? Humans are often afraid of aliens." Darren smiled faintly. "It wasn't always easy. I grew up hearing stories about wars and enemies, but I met people who showed me kindness. I learned that fear is a choice. We can choose trust instead." Kalari nodded slowly. "I wish more of my people could feel that way." Darren looked at her, thoughtful. "Maybe that can change. Maybe you can be part of that change." Kalari smiled softly, feeling a warmth she had not felt in years. As they entered the system, strange energy readings appeared on the sensors. "Something's not right," Darren said, frowning. "There's a power surge nearby." Kalari's eyes narrowed. Could it be the research station? They followed the signal carefully. The station was old, its structure battered and worn from years in space. But the communication arrays still pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Darren expertly docked the shuttle to the station's airlock. The two stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the quiet corridors. The station was dark, but signs of recent life were everywhere. Scattered tools, half-eaten meals, and a few personal items told a story of survivors holding on. Kalari's heart quickened. "They were here," she whispered. They found a small room where a handful of Illyrians had taken shelter. Weak but alive, they looked up with hope and surprise. Among them was Kalari's younger brother, Talon. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Tears filled Kalari's eyes as she embraced him. "We thought you were gone," Talon said softly. "I thought I was lost," Kalari replied. Darren watched the reunion with a smile, knowing that his choice to help had made this possible. The Illyrian survivors told stories of their struggle to survive after the war. They had hidden here, waiting for rescue. Their hope had nearly faded. But Kailari's arrival gave them new strength. Over the next days, the shuttle became a hub of quiet activity. Darren helped repair the station's systems, while Kailari cared for the weak and listened to stories of the lost world. A quiet alliance grew between humans and Allurians, a bond built on trust, respect, and the shared desire to rebuild. 1. Evening. As stars twinkled beyond the station's windows, Kailari stood beside Darren. "This is only the beginning," she said. "There is still much to do." Darren nodded. "Together we can make a new home, one where fear does not rule." Kailari smiled, hope shining in her eyes. For the first time, she saw a future filled with possibility. The small shuttle moved quietly through space as Kailari and Darren prepared for their next journey. The reunion with the survivors had given them hope, but the path ahead was still uncertain. The galaxy was vast and not all would welcome them. Kailari stood at the window, watching the stars pass by. Her mind was full of questions and worries. The memories of the war and loss still lingered like shadows. She felt a mix of hope and fear, hope for the future, fear of what might come. Darren entered the cabin, carrying a small device. "We have a problem," he said calmly. Kailari turned to him, concern growing in her eyes. "What is it?" "There's a human patrol ship ahead. They're scanning for unauthorized ships," Darren explained. Kailari's heart quickened. She knew what this meant. Humans often feared alien refugees, and the patrols were strict. If they found her, she could be detained or worse. Darren continued, "We have to be careful. I'll try to contact them and explain who we are." Kailari nodded silently. She trusted Darren, but the fear was hard to shake. As the patrol ship approached, its bright light swept over the shuttle. Darren activated the comms system. "This is Pilot Darren Holt of the mining outpost," he announced. "I'm transporting survivors from a destroyed colony. We mean no harm." The patrol ship responded with a cold voice. "Identify your passengers. Unauthorized alien transport is not allowed in this sector." Kailari's hands trembled slightly. She stayed quiet, watching Darren handle the situation. Darren spoke calmly but firmly. "These are refugees. They have no place to go. I request permission to pass." There was a long pause. Then the patrol responded, "Your request is denied. You must prepare to be boarded." Kailari's breath caught in her throat. She looked at Darren, fear in her eyes. Darren's jaw tightened. "Hold on," he said. "I'll handle this." He contacted an old friend, a human officer who owed him a favor. Moments later, the patrol ship's tone softened. "Permission granted to proceed. We will monitor your ship." Kailari exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. "That was close," Darren said, offering a small smile. Kailari nodded. "Thank you, Darren, for standing with me." Darren shrugged. "I'm not going to abandon someone in need. We all deserve a chance." As the shuttle moved past the patrol ship, Kailari looked out at the stars. The galaxy was full of dangers, but also kindness. She realized that courage was not just fighting wars, but standing up for others. That night, as they rested, Kailari thought about the future. The survivors needed a safe place, a home. But the galaxy was full of suspicion and fear. She wondered if they could ever find peace. Darren sat beside her. "We will find a way," he said softly. "One step at a time." Kailari smiled faintly. "With you, I believe we can." They both knew the road ahead was hard, but together, they would face whatever came. The shuttle drifted gently through the quiet nebula, its soft lights reflecting on the swirling clouds of gas and dust outside the windows. Inside, Kailari and Darren sat together, tension mixed with hope filling the small cabin. The faint signal they had followed for days had led them here, a hidden Allurian research vessel, long lost and forgotten in this distant corner of space. Kailari's heart pounded with nervous excitement. Could this be where the rest of her people had survived? Darren scanned the readings carefully. The signal is faint but steady. We should be close. Kalari nodded. Her blue skin felt cold despite the warmth inside the shuttle. Memories of her past clashed with the possibility of a new future. They docked gently with the vessel, the old metal groaning softly under their touch. The ship was dark, silent except for the hum of dormant machines. They moved cautiously inside, flashlights cutting through the shadows. As they explored the narrow corridors, Kalari's breath caught. Signs of life. Empty food containers, makeshift beds, personal belongings showed that people had lived here recently. Suddenly, a soft sound echoed down the hall, a faint cough. Kalari's eyes widened. Someone is here. They hurried toward the sound, finding a small group of Illyrians gathered in a common room. They looked weak, tired, but alive. Among them was a familiar face, Kalari's younger brother Talon. Their eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. Kalari rushed forward and embraced him tightly. "Talon," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I lost you." Talon held her close. "We thought you were gone forever." Darren watched silently, moved by the reunion. His heart swelled with quiet pride that his actions had helped bring them together. The survivors shared their story. After the war, they had fled to this vessel, hoping to wait out the chaos. Supplies were low, but their hope had not died. Kalari's arrival brought new life to their spirits. Over the next days, Darren worked to repair the ship's systems. While Kalari cared for the survivors, she listened to their stories of loss and survival, their dreams of rebuilding a home. One evening, Kalari and Darren stood by a large window, looking out at the nebula's swirling colors. Kalari spoke softly. "I never imagined finding them. Again, I was ready to give up." Darren smiled. "Hope is a powerful thing. It keeps us moving forward." Kalari looked at him with gratitude. "You saved more than just me. You saved my people." Darren shook his head. "We saved each other." As the research vessel powered up, the survivors began preparing to leave their hiding place. The galaxy was still uncertain, but together they would face the future. Kalari felt something new, a deep sense of belonging, not just to her people but to this human who had reached out when she was lost. The stars outside shone bright, a reminder that even in darkness, light could be found. The shuttle glided smoothly through the calm space, carrying Kalari, Darren, and the small group of Illyrian survivors toward a new hope. The tension that had gripped Kalari's heart for so long was slowly lifting, replaced by a quiet determination. Kalari stood near the window, watching the stars pass by. She thought about everything that had happened, the war that tore her world apart, the loneliness that followed, and the unexpected friendship with Darren, the human who had reached out when she had lost everything. Darren approached her, holding a small device that displayed a map of nearby star systems. "We've sent a message," he said. "A peaceful call for help and refuge. We asked for a neutral safe zone, somewhere both Illyrians and humans can live without fear." Kalari nodded. "Do you think anyone will answer?" Darren smiled gently. "Some will be afraid, yes, but many more want peace. We have to believe in that." The survivors gathered in the shuttle's small cabin. They spoke quietly about their dreams, a place where they could rebuild their homes, raise their children, and live without the shadow of war. Kalari listened, feeling hope grow inside her like a small flame. Days passed as they waited for a response. The silence was difficult, but Kalari and Darren found strength in each other's company. They shared stories, laughter, and even moments of quiet comfort. One evening, the comm system crackled to life. A message from a nearby human colony appeared. The voice was cautious but kind. "We received your signal," the voice said. "We are willing to help establish a safe zone. Peace is possible." Kalari's heart soared. Tears filled her eyes as she turned to Darren. "We did it. There is hope." Darren nodded, his eyes shining. "This is only the beginning. But it's a good start." Together they began making plans. The human colony would provide supplies and protection, while the Illyrian survivors would share their knowledge and culture. It was a partnership born from trust and courage. As the shuttle approached the new colony, Kailari felt a sense of peace she had not known in years. She looked at Darren and smiled. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Darren reached out and took her hand. "Thank you for showing me the meaning of hope." The colony's leaders welcomed them with open arms. The survivors found homes and new friendships blossomed between species. Kailari stood beside Darren as they addressed the gathered crowd, speaking of unity, courage, and the future. She realized that her journey had changed her, not just as an alien survivor, but as a symbol of what kindness and trust could achieve. The war had taken much from her, but it had not taken her spirit. With the help of one human who reached out in her darkest hour, Kailari found more than survival. She found a new beginning. Under the bright stars of a peaceful sky, the alien woman and the human stood side by side, ready to face whatever the future held, together.